All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. So, the regular season schedule for the National Football League is out there. We've still got about 4 months to go before the beginning of the 2024 season. But nonetheless, it's never too early to begin the process of looking ahead to said season, even though it's mid May right now. But with that said, there are some games that I want to highlight in regards to the upcoming season. So you look at week number one, and of course, the action is going to begin that Thursday night as you have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Baltimore Ravens. And for the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, they're opening up against a team that they just knocked off in January in the AFC Championship game. While more than likely Patrick Mahomes is going to look to improve on his stellar record when he goes up against Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Sticking with the week one theme, the NFL is going to Brazil on a Friday night. This game's going to be on Peacock exclusively between the Packers and Eagles. And I've talked about this a couple of weeks ago because it's unfortunate because you have two of the better fan bases in the National Football League with the Eagles and the Packers. And, a lot of people are going to be denied seeing their favorite team in person. But then moving ahead to that Sunday for week number one, you've got the Steelers and Falcons as it's a pair of veteran quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins who are set to debut with new teams. That same Sunday, you have the Titans and the Chicago Bears as Caleb Williams will be making his NFL debut. Interesting game for me is you got the Vikings and Giants at the Meadowlands that Sunday as JJ McCarthy more than likely could be the starting quarterback or possibly rather, okay, could be the starting quarterback for the Vikings that afternoon. And could he make the Giants regret on passing on him in the last month's draft? We got to wait and see. That same Sunday, you got the Raiders taking on the Chargers, an AFC West matchup, which is also the beginning of the Jim Harbaugh era in LA. And then finally, on that Monday night, you've got the Jets traveling to take on the defending NFC champions in the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, if you're a Jet fan, you got your fingers crossed because we saw this team debut on Monday Night Football last year. And of course, it went downhill in a big hurry with the Aaron Rodgers injury. Now, you look at week number two, and we got the Steelers traveling to take on the Broncos. And what does that mean? That means Russell Wilson is making his return to the Mile High City. And I guarantee you that the red carpet won't be rolled out for him that Sunday. That same Sunday, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, as there is simply no love lost between these two AFC foes. Now, moving ahead to week number three, you've got the Ravens traveling to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And I think this is an intriguing matchup for me. Why? Because there were plenty of people out there who felt that the Cowboys should have made a move to try to sign veteran running back Derrick Henry this offseason. But of course, the Cowboys being hamstrung financially, they couldn't do it. Now he went to the Ravens, and Dallas will get an up close view at the future Hall of Famer. So in week number four, you've got the Eagles traveling to take on the Bucks, and of course, this is a rematch of a contest that was dominated in the wild card round by Tampa Bay. That same Sunday, you've got the Chiefs taking on the Chargers as it's the first battle between Andy Reid and, of course, Jim Harbaugh as Chargers head coach. Week number five, you've got the Ravens and the Bengals. And I'm going to say this a lot. Buckle up for another long black and blue season, a long season rather, in the black and blue division in the NFL in regards to the AFC North. Browns, Ravens, Steelers, and Bengals all potentially could be playoff teams this year. Three of them made the playoffs last year. That same weekend on Sunday night, you got the Cowboys taking on the Steelers. And when you think about Cowboys facing the Steelers, you think about two of the most iconic franchises in the National Football League. Of course, these three franchises have squared off in three Super Bowls, very memorable Super Bowls. And of course, here in 2024, both of these teams once again have playoff aspirations. Week number 6, the Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And, we saw these two teams meet late in the season last year. Of course, it came down to a failed 2-point conversion by the Lions. People wonder what could have been, but nonetheless, both of these teams definitely will have their eyes once again on making the postseason. In week number 7, the return of Sean Payton on Thursday night when the Denver Broncos traveled to take on the New Orleans Saints. And of course, Sean Payton had so many successful years with quarterback Drew Brees with the New Orleans Saints, of course, culminating in 2009 when the Saints won their first and only Super Bowl championship to this point. That same week, that Sunday afternoon, it's the return of Saquon Barkley to MetLife Stadium, this time as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles when they take on the New York Giants. And I guarantee you that the Boo Birds, the Eagles will be out there, but nonetheless, the Boo Birds will definitely be out there to greet Mr. Barkley upon his return. That Sunday afternoon, the San Francisco 49ers will host the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of this past February Super Bowl. And then that Sunday night, you've got the Jets going to the Steel City to take on the Steelers. In week number 8, the Ravens play the Browns. And it's one of those where I talked about the black and blue division, and it's going to be so important, okay, in those games between the division for teams to win because you simply don't want to fall too far behind in the AFC North. That same Sunday, the Chiefs play the Raiders. We saw the Chiefs play the Raiders, pardon me, the Raiders play the Chiefs rather, very tough last year. They split, including Vegas getting the win on the road in Arrowhead on Christmas Day. Antonio Pierce has already talked about the Jordan rules for Patrick Mahomes. How physical will his defense be this year? We got to wait and see. And then that Sunday night, you've got the Cowboys taking on the San Francisco 49ers. No love lost between these two teams. Both of them have aspirations, once again, of course, on making the playoffs and, of course, winning the NFC. Now, moving to week number 9, a potential playoff preview when the Houston Texans travel to take on the New York Jets on Thursday night. And then moving to that Sunday, the Lions and the Packers. Both of them made the playoffs last year. We came very close to having a Lions Packers meeting in the NFC Championship game. Both of these teams have what it takes to win the NFC this year. That's going to be an ultra important one there. Week number 10 on Thursday night, we've got the Bengals taking on the Ravens. And of course, late last season on a Thursday night, when the Bengals played the Ravens, Joe Burrow was lost for the season to a wrist injury, which really hindered or hampered Cincinnati's chances of getting to the postseason. That same weekend on Sunday, you've got the Eagles taking on the Cowboys. And you talk about no love lost. There's really no love lost between the Eagles and Cowboys, and that goes back for decades. All right. Week number 11, the Packers and Bears. And this is one of the NFL's oldest rivalries. The first meeting between Jordan Love and Caleb Williams. So we could be seeing these core quarterbacks go at it for years in the NFC North. That same Sunday, you've got Ravens, Steelers, Chiefs, Bills. Of course, we've seen these teams meet so many times in recent years in the postseason. And of course, it's always Kansas City getting the upper hand. You got the Bengals traveling to take on the Chargers. And then that Monday night, the Texans taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, week number 12, you've got the Steelers traveling to take on the Browns on a Thursday night. The Niners traveling late in the season to take on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau, a rematch of this past January's divisional round game. You got the Ravens and Chargers on Monday night in week 12 as it's the next indoctrination of the Harbaugh Bowl. Then in week 13, another matchup between the Steelers and Bengals, which more than likely will be very important in the AFC North. And then we've got Eagles, Ravens, two very good football teams that feel like they have what it takes to make a run at the Super Bowl. Now, looking ahead to week number 14, you got the Packers and Lions on Thursday night, Jets, Dolphins on Sunday. And that could be important as both of these teams have eyes on trying to win the AFC East. The Falcons will travel to take on the Vikings that Sunday as it's the return of Kirk Cousins to Minnesota. The Browns take on the Steelers. And then that Sunday night, you got the Chargers getting it on with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that Monday night, You got Cincinnati traveling to take on Dallas. Now, for week number 15, Kansas City will be in Cleveland to take on the Browns. Two teams, of course, that have their eyes set on the postseason. And of course, if you're Kansas City, like I said before, you're really trying to get that three-peat in. And then that same Sunday, you've got the Steelers staying in state to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, week 16, you got the Browns and Bengals on Thursday night, the Texans and Chiefs on Saturday, as well as the Steelers and Ravens, and then the Lions and Bears that Sunday. And then on Christmas Day in week 17, of course, the two Netflix games. Say what you want about that, but nonetheless, you got the Chiefs traveling to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, which could be a potential playoff preview, as could the Baltimore Ravens traveling to take on the Houston Texans in a rematch of a divisional round contest from this past January. Then moving ahead to Sunday, Jets Bills as the Jets travel to Orchard Park. Cowboys Eagles, as this game could decide who wins the NFC East. You've also got Dolphins Browns. And then that Monday, how about this? Our rematch of the NFC Championship game from this past January, as you got the Lions traveling to Santa Clara to take on the Niners. And finally, in week number 18, it's always exclusively a divisional matchups, should I say. And you could have some very important ones that day: Bears, Packers, Dolphins, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, and Browns, Ravens. So you look at it, and once again, the NFL strikes again because all eyes are on them right now with their schedule release, and they know how to do it better than anybody else as far as having competitive games coming down the stretch in the regular season. It's not just about them matching up divisional foes, it's also about them matching up some of the better teams or some of the teams that are expected to be the better teams in each respective conference against one another. Now we're seeing the National Football League push the narrative against the NBA on Christmas Day. When you think about Christmas Day, it's the NBA's version of Thanksgiving Day. It's basketball on all day long. The NBA has 5 games, and now the NFL, we've seen them do it this past year with a game on Christmas Day. They've done it in the past periodically, but okay, but it looks like now the NFL is looking to delve into that and not make Christmas Day the exclusive province of the National Basketball Association. In late December and early January, it's going to be a football fans' haven. You think about it, of course, this year is year number one of the college football playoff. And of course, seeds 5 through 12 will play each other in campus contest, on campus contest rather, in December. Now you've got the college football playoff going up against the NFL season. Very interesting right there. So you look at it, and I'm not going to talk about everybody. I'm going to talk about some of the teams, in regards to their schedules. And, there's always going to be the question, who does it look like has the hardest schedule? Well, one team that I say is going to have it hard coming out of the gates, or it looks like that, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. Why? Because 4 of Buffalo's first 6 games are on the road. And of course, these are the new look Bills. A lot has changed for this team since last year, most notably Stephon Diggs is no longer there. He's with the Houston Texans. But again, like I said, 4 of Buffalo's first 6 games are on the road. Week number 2 at Miami, week number 4 at Baltimore, week number 5 at Houston and Stephon Diggs, and then week number 6 at the Jets. Wow, that's a tough one right there. 3 straight weeks for Buffalo. You look at this: at Baltimore, at Houston, and then at the Jets. Uh, the road to the three-peat for Kansas City. I mean, obviously things could change between now and the regular season, or during the regular season, of course. But you got Baltimore and Cincinnati at home in the first 2 weeks. Week 7 and week 8, back-to-back road trips against the Niners and the Raiders. You look at for the Chiefs coming down the stretch there. Week 15 at Cleveland. Week 16, they're home for Houston. Week 17, they're at Pittsburgh. So that's a tough 3 game stretch there. And it's one of those, if you're Kansas City, you know how to do this better than anybody currently in the National Football League. And that is taking everybody's best punch, because everybody wants to knock you off because you're the defending champs. The Lions are definitely going to look to avoid being the one trick pony. So close, yet so far to from getting to the Super Bowl this past February. The road to get there and get even further is going to be tougher because the expectations are higher for the Lions. And then on top of that, this division has gotten a lot better. I think for the Lions, first things first, they got 3 out of 4 at home to begin the season. You've got to take care of your business there. First off, you've got the two teams that you beat in the playoffs last year in your building, coming back to Ford Field. You host the Rams on Sunday night in week 1, and then you host the Bucks in week number 2. So I think the Lions need to get off to a strong start because once you get into the teen weeks of the schedule, it's not easy. They got 2 games with the Bears. They've got a game against the Packers. They finish up with the Vikings. And then, of course, week 18, or week 17, rather, they are at San Francisco. Year 1 for Jim Harbaugh. Will this be a transition year where the Chargers will just be competitive, or will they push for a postseason spot? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, 3 out of their first 4 games, if you're the Chargers, you host the Raiders, you're at Pittsburgh in week 3, and then you're home for Kansas City in week 4. Also, looking at Caleb Williams, can he do his thing and get the Bears to the postseason as a rookie? The Bears are much improved on offense, and I think it's one of those. I think the Bears. I don't think they're going to sneak up on some people this year, but I do think they will be very competitive when at the end of the day. Uh, the Jets. We're going to see plenty of the Jets in prime time. They've got 6 games, and I think the NFL is backing on a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, you look at it last year, the Jets won 7 games primarily with Zach Wilson as their quarterback. And now everybody, I think, is hoping for a healthy Aaron Rodgers this year because the fact that they won 7 games with Zach Wilson just makes you believe, wow, what could this team really have been if Aaron Rodgers were healthy? Those games, like I said before, within the AFC North, and I know the division games regardless of the division, are so tough. But I think the AFC North to me is the best division from top to bottom in the National Football League. And I think it's going to be so important with those 6 games that each team has within that division to come out on top. Whoever Whichever team I think gets to 4 wins in this division, I think wins. Okay. And I say, you think about it and you're like, well, 4 wins, you should be able to win 4 games, at least within your division. Not this division. It's very tough. So I think the first team to get to 4 wins within that division more than likely wins it. A potential sophomore jinx for CJ Stroud. I mean, this kid showed last year that he's the real deal. You look at this division as a whole, a lot of young teams, especially at the quarterback position. You got Stroud and Houston. You got Anthony Richardson, who's coming back from the injury for the Colts. Okay, you got Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. And then, of course, more than likely, you got Will Levis in Tennessee. The Texans, you could say they snuck up on some people last year, but they got rolling. But at the end of the day, we were able to see that CJ Stroud is the real deal. And I don't think there's going to be a sophomore jinx. I think first and foremost, what the Texans have to do is go out there and take care of the business of their business in the games that they're expected to win. Schedule is going to be a little bit tougher this year, of course, being the fact that they won that division last year. So now they play a lot of first place teams from the other divisions around the AFC, a la your Kansas Cities and your Buffaloes and so forth. Just looking at it as a whole, of course, we're in May. You still got OTAs, you still got training camps, and it's all about which teams can remain injury free. I've said it before, and I will say it again. Every single year, there's always 1 or 2 season ending injuries in training camp. Every single year, there's always that big injury for somebody in week number 1 or week number 2 that really changes the outlook for the National Football League. It's a war of attrition. And once again, 2024 will not be any different uh, than the other years. At the end of the day, September will be here before you know it. About 4 months away, but before you blink, it's going to be the start of the National Football League season. The excitement's always there. I think the fact that less is more. I know that the NFL is looking to expand due to their popularity, excuse me, as far as expanding their regular season once again. But nonetheless, the fact that it's 17 games, not 162, not 84, not 82, makes people focus more. Why? Because the games are so important. And I think we should be getting ready to buckle up for another intense regular season in the National Football League. Like I said, it'll be here before you know it, but nonetheless, it's not too early to look ahead. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.